Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Jane C. Phillips. We are on this podcast or vlog every Thursday morning at 10:30 Mountain Time, and we have conversations with Jane about what she does being a paranormal investigator, a medical intuitive, and a psychic medium. So, good morning, Jane.
Well, good morning.
So last week we were talking about dowsing, and you showed a couple of really pretty pendulums, a really pretty red one, yeah, and then your fancy silver one. Yeah, those are beautiful. And so how now I was thinking this week, like, okay, this all sounds like fun and cool, but what are some practical things you could actually use it for, besides hitting somebody in the head with it? Like, what do you, what are some things we could do?
So, for those of you who missed last week or are looking at things out of sequence, dowsing is the whole concept. I'm talking about dowsing using a pendulum to figure yes and no answers out, to just kind of play around to find out if you can move energy. It's like fun. And last week was about we've been in lockdown. We've been, what would be fun to learn as something that's interesting and might be helpful. So this week I wanted to just expand on that and say, so if you decided it was fun and you decided to make a pendulum because you went out and bought one, or you just took a piece of string and tied a bolt to it, because I told you you could do that. You don't have to be fancy to start. And you got interested. It's like, now what? I figured out I can ask yes and no questions. And so there are some tools out there that you can that will help you, because we can't think of all the practical ways we can use a pendulum to get answers. The first place we start is having your pendulum say your yes, give you a yes and a no, so you can start asking yes and no questions. But then down the line, there are charts. And what I was talking to Pam before we started is one of the guys that's really great out there, because we can't think of all the ways we can use a tool, is there's a guy named Dale Olson, and I have an older version, even though it says new and updated, of something called the pendulum charts.
Ah, cool. Okay.
And so in this, the difference between just asking yes and no questions and using a chart is like I have this chart that I use all the time. It's got a circle, and I put my pendulum right in the middle there. And then I ask the pendulum a question, and when I'm using this chart, it will start swinging in the direction of the answer. Okay. So if you're using this, which is more complicated, and we're not talking about that today, but if you're using one of Dale's charts, then it's the same idea. So he's got a chart on, for example, herbal remedies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not every remedy, but he's got, say, and there are questions at the top. So my body is in need of what herbal remedy? And you put your pendulum right in the middle. There's a little spot in the middle, and you let it swing out, and then you can ask questions. Okay, my body needs bayberry bark, which is on this. And you can look up and say, well, what is that? And then it asks to what degree is it needed. And in this book, there is a chart for percentages, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So if the question is to what degree, I'm looking because I didn't pull this ahead of time, to what degree is it needed, you can either count, so you can let your pendulum say no until you say, well, is it 10% I need this, or 20% I need this, or 100% I need this? And when your pendulum starts to swing, whatever your yes is, then you've got a percentage. But the nice thing about a chart is you don't have to do that. You can just use the chart and let it swing. Okay. So practical things. One of the things he didn't do in the book that I got, he didn't do an index table of contents. So I created one. But food supplements, you can check on things you might need for your diet if you're having issues. He's got a spot for chronic fatigue, for your immune system, for family lineage, if there are things that you think are inherited. So
that was fascinating. So at first, when you started to describe it, it sounded almost like, okay, like you're going to ask on a Ouija board questions, but this is a lot more focused and detailed.
Yep. And when you're working with this, you're always working with your highest intent, right?
Yeah.
The Ouija board, you don't know who you're connecting with. With this, because your intention is for your health in some way, you're going to be connecting most of the time with your higher guides, and there's a lot more to this, but they've even got one on automobile diagnosis. So like, what's the matter with my car?
Wow. Have you used it?
I tried that. I haven't been real successful. I will go in to the mechanic when something's not working and say, well, I think it's the alternator, because I dowsed it. And the mechanic will say, no, what made you think that? So I will tell you that dowsing is a little bit of an art as opposed to a science.
Got it.
If you want to have some more fun, looks like I'm going to have a little bit of cough as I'm doing this. If you want to have a little bit more fun and start to get practical and can't think of all the things you possibly could do with your pendulum, you might want to download his book. It's $24. He wrote it in 2004, but it's still really valid. And he's updated some things. And sorry about the coughing. And the other piece too, he's updated a bunch of things. So he's got a house inventory thing, but he's got a blank one at the back. So if you are into something and you want a bunch of options, you can make your own chart.
Okay. Like it could be gardening, and you could say, okay, what things am I going to be most successful growing, or that kind of thing, and then
right
on the chart. Yeah.
I've used because I work with flower essences. He has a lot of the Bach flower essence on a chart, and I work with the different companies' essences, and then there's also the Flower Essence Society, which has its own set. So you can create your own chart. So I just thought it would be fun. Think about some practical things. Do you think you're deficient? You're struggling with not as much health as you want, or maybe some things you're trying to figure out between a series of things, like even in remodeling, or should I keep something or whatever. But this is a way. There are 50 charts.
Yeah.
I also created one that I retyped up because I took it from him. I think it's in his latest book, is a relationship compatibility chart for those of you who can't get away from dowsing about your relationship.
How fun.
Because people, I think that dowsing for relationships is kind of tricky.
Right.
We get pretty emotionally attached to people, but I don't know. What else do you think?
I mean, gosh, you could do all kinds of things from, do you financially, do you take a vacation, or do you keep your money in the bank? Do you, leave it in a savings account or put it into an investment account? Or there's so many things that you could, do I have another child, or do I get another dog, right? Or pet kind of thing.
And yeah. So all of those like
Anything, right?
yes and no things. And then the big piece that you get with his book is he asks you some questions on each page. So you can start looking at, instead of just yes and no, you can start looking at percentages of yes and no. So
Mhm.
I was dowsing this morning. I'm looking for an immune support supplement that a friend of mine who has cancer is on. And so I thought, gosh, that'd be great. I think I could use some. And I dowsed it. It was 40% beneficial. And it's expensive. It's a bottle is $160, but it can last months. But still, I thought, oh, it's only 40% beneficial for me. It's a yes,
Mm-hmm.
but I tend to want to spend my money on things that are better. And so I went and looked at another immune support thing that someone had told me about, and that was at a yes at 95%. So sometimes when you're first learning, we're just happy that we got yes to do something or no.
Yeah.
Should I get a new puppy, or should I get an older dog?
Right.
But then figure out a few percentages to what it is again, and ask some questions. Another piece that just popped into my head, there's a dowser I follow named Raven Grace, and he dowses the integrity, like he's going to buy a car. He dowses at what percent, how much integrity and a percentage does the auto dealership have? What's their honesty level?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I've used that when I'm going out for services, like a new car, or purchasing something, just to make sure. And a lot of times you can feel if you're not in alignment when you go and purchase something and people aren't treating you right. But anyway.
Yeah, but that's good information to have. I mean, you could use it for pretty much any big decision, really, that you're trying.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, like a best friend. So I like that. Yeah.
So I just this week I wanted to kind of finish up the pendulum dowsing thing.
And maybe next week we can talk about the other things that you use, because in last week you showed a couple of elements, like you had the pendulum, but then you had a wand and you had something else. There were three
I had
instruments.
L rods.
L rods, yeah. So maybe next
they're the
week.
ones that people use for dowsing water.
Yeah.
And then the last piece about dowsing is I didn't talk about in the beginning, but we won't talk this time for lack of time, is about body dowsing, using your physical body, because you don't always have a tool with you.
Mm-hmm.
Being comfortable with knowing what your physical body is telling you is a yes or no. Oh,
wow. Okay.
And maybe. So I teach that when I teach classes. I teach full body dowsing and then dowsing with your fingers, with your hands. And so we might do a little of that next time, because it's handy. If you're wondering if someone is telling you the truth, or you suspect that they're, hedging things a bit, you don't have to do anything. You don't pull a pendulum out in front of them, but you might just kind of check within and say, are they telling me the truth around this? Mm-hmm. And if your body gives you've checked what your no is, you get a no. But if you get a yes, a really strong yes, even though what they're telling you seems like wow, it gives you a little bit more affirmation, and you don't have to reveal that you're checking things out. And you can do it seated, dinner table conversation kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And not that you're going to accuse somebody of lying, because you kind of don't do that.
Right.
But it's information for you to kind of know where you want to take or not take the conversation.
Yeah. Like, for example, not to we're over on time a little bit, but for an example, we have been having some plumbing issues in our house with our filtration system, and we've asked like 5 different plumbers for their opinion, and you get 5 different answers. So how do you know what's one to go with? So that would be a perfect, okay, I'll do it, see what it says.
And the other thing too is, before you check your plumbers, before you even call them, you can douse the integrity of the plumbing company before you even pick up the phone.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Good. So that's great. That's a great.
these are I tend to be practical. Anyone who's had a personal session with me knows that I take all this weird stuff that I do and turn it into reason and logic. And so
Right.
I want you to have some, solid tools, even though they might not appear scientific to you. All of this stuff that I do is kind of quantum physics. So there is science behind it, which if I try and talk about it, I probably butcher it, and some scientist will tell me, where'd you come up with that? But I do know that after all these years of doing this work, that is real, and that the things I'm talking about are things that can aid you. So we'll talk next week about some of the next couple of weeks, or maybe next week we'll finish it up about dowsing, and then we'll go back to how I can. But my website, janecphillips.com, is on the screen here, and you can find out more about what I do. I work with trauma with people, or just what I call stinking thinking. So if you've got some things going on that you don't even know are running the show for you, or a broadcast message, something that's in your energy field that's bringing in non-supportive people, for that. But
yeah, and people can also
next week.
Yes, and people can also catch you on your radio show on Monday afternoon at 3:00 Mountain, correct?
Right. I did one last Monday. I do it every other Monday.
Every other Monday. Okay.
On News for the Soul. Radio, and it's a 1-hour healing that I do for people who call in. So, and if you're on, whether you get a personal healing or not, the people that are listening also get healing. It's been profound that way, and we talk to people all over the world. I have people calling in all the way from Australia and Great Britain and all of that. So
awesome, cool. All right, well, thank you so much, Jane. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks for hosting.